Train the muscles, not the joints. So welcome back to the Natural Gallant Bodybuilding Friday Q&A. And today I'm just going to be scrolling through the comments on the YouTube channel. So if you guys have questions, make sure you do put them on the YouTube channel because it's a lot easier for me to access them there. So anyway, just a reminder to you guys that aren't paying attention. Okay, all right, good. So one guy, Christopher, is asking about his training program, and he's asking if it's good if he does high volume for a period of time, then switches to low volume. Yeah, that's pretty much the basis of the video that I just put up. It's good to just shock the body and just try new things because there's really no right program that's good for everybody. It's more about finding out how your body responds, and sometimes shocking it through a different type of stimulus is a good idea. Sometimes it's higher frequency, sometimes it's higher intensity, sometimes it's higher volume, or sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes it's lower frequency, lower volume, lower intensity, right? So it just depends on what's going on with your body. So in alignment with that, some of you guys are asking me, like you're giving me your programs, you're saying, oh, I'm doing 10 sets of this and 20 sets of that, whatever. Is this too much or is that too much? Honestly, I can give you general answers on this, but every answer is going to be different depending on the person. It'll depend on how they recover. It'll depend on their genetics. It'll depend on what happens in their body, right? So the most important thing you can do is actually just pay attention to what's happening. So one guy said he's doing a 5x5 program and he's training heavy all the time and he's getting some results, he's getting stronger. And he's saying, obviously this is the right program for me. And I'm going to say, no, that's not true. That's not true, because getting stronger doesn't mean that you're not broken, okay? Because he said he's developing some tendonitis in his elbow. So ultimately what you want to do is you want to straddle the fence of pushing, but at the same time you want to rep out or take rests and stuff to make sure that you're not developing joint problems. Because if you have a broken joint, you're not going to be lifting anything, right? So a lot of times people make the mistake of saying, I'm gaining more strength, so that means my program is the right one for me. But sometimes those strength gains are just nothing more than coordination. You're getting more coordinated with moving in a certain range of motion and getting that groove down. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's good all the time forever. It just might mean that you're getting some results for it for now, but that doesn't mean you don't pay attention and see, okay, how's my body responding as a whole? Don't just look at what you're lifting. Look at also, is your shoulder hurting? Is your elbow hurting? Is your back, a mess? These types of things also play a factor in the decisions you make, because one injury can end your entire training progress, okay? For 6 months you can be off, or several years depending on the type of injury. So ultimately you want to take all these factors into account, okay? So when you ask me a general question about is this program right for you or not, really what I'm going to say is I'm going to turn around and just say to you, pay attention what's happening to your body. Maybe you're making some muscular gains, maybe you're making some strength gains, but are you also injury free? These factors also play a role. And I understand that everybody that pushes their body is going to have some tweaks and injuries here and there. That's kind of normal. It's kind of the name of the game when you're pushing your body as an athlete. But you want to keep that as minimal as possible so that way you can continue to train and continue to make progress, right? So yeah, so I hope that helps you out. So just understand, if I don't really answer your comment when you say, is this program good or is that program bad? Honestly, I need to do a consultation with you and really find out all the different factors that are going on, and I just don't have time to read 4 books or a history book of your life to go through each comment. So I want to help you, but I'm trying to basically get you to pay more attention to what's going on in your body, because that's the thing that's going to help you the most. It's not about just giving you a template and then blindly following that template. You start with a template, but you also open up your awareness and pay attention. So somebody's asking out there, how do you train the joints? They talk about different types of training techniques that people have out there, and they're assuming that when I'm saying to use the ideal range of motion that you're not getting any joint training. If you put 500 pounds on your back and do partials, I guarantee you your joints will become the weak link in the exercise. And if 500 pounds is not enough, put 800 pounds on there and find out if your joints are the weak link in the exercise. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is that your joints are actually already getting a workout. They are getting a workout. But what's going on out there is that there's this misconception that stretching the muscle to its full length and then going beyond that and jamming the joint and basically going beyond the range of motion of the muscle, that somehow is a good thing for the joints. And I'm going to say it's not. It's not good for the joints at all, because the muscles are there as the first line of defense to keep the joint together. Okay, so the muscles are the first line of defense to keep you from breaking your joint apart. So that said, whenever your muscles are tugging on the joint is still getting worked. It's just that there's a point of diminishing return. There's a point to where there's just a snapping of the joint. It's like an elastic band. It just snaps. So if you get to the snapping point in a muscle, Does that actually increase your gains? No, it causes a muscle tear. If you get to the snapping point in a ligament or tendon, does that increase your gains? No, obviously it doesn't. It actually just tears the joint apart. So at that point, it's overkill. It's too much stimulus and it's causing just nothing but injury, okay? So just know this, there's a misconception out there that the joints aren't getting trained, but the joints are always getting trained. I did a bone density test on my body, 10 years ago, and I was like twice as dense in different areas, and I'm not just talking about my head, okay? But I was twice as dense in the wrist and in the shin and in the areas that they were testing for bone density, right? So the bones were actually getting worked as well, just from lifting the heavy weights and just from constantly doing resistance type exercise. So anyway, there will be people out there that disagree. Your joints actually are getting worked. You can't do anything without your joints getting worked. I mean, your joints are actually getting worked. As soon as you move, your joints are getting some level of work. And if you're pushing that intensity by lifting heavy weight, you're going to be working the joints every single time. Okay, so are there ways of stretching the joint creatively or rehabilitating or strengthening different parts of the muscle surrounding the joint? Yes, there is different exercises and isometrics and things, and sometimes it's good to experiment with different exercises like I have and just play around with light weights and to make sure that you're working some of those weaker muscle groups and stuff. That's all good too, right? So yeah, apply all these techniques, but just know that you're always working the joints if you're lifting weights and you're challenging yourself. That is happening. Okay, so Flash Errol is asking a good question. He's saying, is behind the neck shoulder press safe? And I'm going to say it just depends on how you do it and depends on how you're built, once again, okay? But I don't do behind the neck press now because of the slap tear I have in my shoulder, and I don't want to dislocate my shoulder doing shoulder presses. And I do know several people that have received career-ending injuries from behind the neck shoulder press. They dislocated their shoulder because they're overextending the labrum and then pushing, and they came down way too far. So this is another argument for that range of motion bullshit that's going on the internet. If you come down too far, you will actually pop your shoulder out if your shoulder is externally rotated. It can happen. If you're not genetically built for it, and under the right circumstances, you can pop your shoulder out. So I knew guys that were going right down to the neck, behind the neck, and they just had a momentary lapse of balance, and then they actually popped their shoulder out, and their shoulder was permanently damaged from that point on. I actually know 3 people actually that happened to. So the thing is that behind the neck press can be safe if you work with lighter poundages, you're built for it, and you're not afraid to use the right range of motion. So I used to come right down to the middle of my head. I wouldn't go down any lower than that. And I would get a good stretch of my front delts, but I wouldn't get any joint pain, or it wouldn't feel like the pressure is in the joint. Didn't feel like the joint's gonna be ripped right out of the socket or something, right? So if you're gonna do behind the neck presses, make sure that you're careful, you come down slow, and you're paying attention, and you keep those elbows underneath the hands. You don't, allow any sort of external rotation like this, like the bar to fall backwards. I mean, obviously you're not trying to do that, but that is very important. So where a lot of times people get the injuries that they try to go super heavy weight, and then they rely on their spotter, and each time their spotter failed and dislocated a shoulder. So anyway, that's something to watch out for with behind the neck press. Again, you're gonna have to pay attention to your body and find out. If your body starts to get inflamed, your shoulder starts to get inflamed, you start to get shoulder pain or bursitis or something when you're doing it, then definitely stop and just stick to front. But front is more than enough. Honestly, you can get a lot of results just from front, a shoulder press. Experiment if you want and find out what's right for you. So John, always Johnson. Anyway, he's asking whether I have something to eat after a workout or how quick do I eat. And usually right after I leave the gym, I go home. That's the first thing on my mind is getting something to eat. Within about 30 minutes of working out, I try to get something to eat, some protein, and depending on what I'm doing with my carbs and stuff will depend on whether I have carbs in that meal or not. But carbs are great to have after a workout because your body is more efficient at shuttling that glycogen into the muscles. So you can take that into account if you're eating right after your workout. So post-workout, you try to eat as fast as possible, usually 20 minutes after I'm already eating. One Man Band is asking me about what I think about the weight harness for the head so people can do neck exercises. For bodybuilding, I don't really think it's really relevant. Just a really big thick neck is really not that important in a bodybuilding contest, but if you're doing a sport like rugby or wrestling or jiu-jitsu or something like that, it is really relevant because you want to make sure those muscles around the neck are strong. That way you don't get a herniated disc when somebody puts you in a headlock or something like that, or if you fall funny. I've never done that. I've really never ever done the neck harness thing. I used to watch my dad do that all the time. But yeah, no, I never really did that stuff. But yeah, I think it does have some value. Definitely if you're doing some sports that involve a lot of neck jolting and whiplash type movements and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, go ahead, try it out. So Tejas is asking me about high volume push-ups and chin-ups every day, or pull-ups, and asking if that's effective. And I'd say, yeah, you could gain some muscle mass from that, but the only problem is that you will be limited by body weight. So your intensity is pretty much going to stay the same, and then it's slowly going to drop because you may gain some strength endurance from that. But at some point, your fast twitch fibers won't be getting hit as well. So if you're only able to do like 5 or 6 reps or 8 reps on a pull-up, and then all of a sudden you can do like 50 reps on a pull-up, obviously the intensity has come down. So you will get to a point of diminishing return. And obviously muscle has a lot to do with strength endurance and the different fibers, and also just straight endurance. So you want to work all the different rep ranges, and that's why I always say to change things up. So if you're stuck just doing body weight, yeah, it can be really good exercise and it can help you develop some muscles, but there will be some muscle fibers that don't get stimulated from that. Terry Griffith is asking, he's saying, were you and your brother featured at Muscle Media magazine? And yeah, we were, years ago. That was back in late 1997, actually. That was when they did a story on us as natural bodybuilders, and I remember antagonizing the photographer and creative director backstage at a bodybuilding show down in California. And he was actually asking another guy to do a photo shoot, and that guy thought he was just some weirdo hitting on him or something like that. So I heard him say, Muscle Media, I'm with Muscle Media, and I just went and talked to him and said, hey, I'm here. Use me, put me in your magazine, right? So that was one of the take the bull by the horns type stories where I didn't really let somebody overlook me. So yeah, that's what happened. It wasn't because I was special, it's because I just wouldn't take no for an answer. So yeah, my brother and I ended up in Muscle Media magazine because of that. Yeah. So Jack Harris is asking if pull-ups are better for biceps, or if, you know, close grip bench press is better for triceps than isolation exercises. I don't know if there's a right way to answer this, because I've went through stages of liking either one. I think integrating both, because once again, they hit the muscles from different angles, and when you're hitting muscles from different angles, you're going to stimulate different muscles to grow. And I think with every exercise, there's a point of diminishing return where you might love an exercise for a period of time and you get some results from it, and then all of a sudden it seems like you just plateau. And then from there, it's almost like you need to change the angle or change the exercise or change from compound to isolation or vice versa in order to get more results. And also your injury history will play a role. Like for instance, because my shoulders sit a little different now, when I do close grip, one side's taking a little bit more of the stress than the other, and I have to adjust the bar based on that. And I found that when I don't have extended ranges of motion like this that challenge the instability of the shoulder joint and my arms are down, I find that with isolation exercises, I can actually get a lot more of a pump and a lot more of a feel, and I have developed some more tricep form from that. Okay, my triceps here. So yeah, so basically, I developed triceps from doing more isolation exercises, and the compound exercises, sometimes I find I get chest, I get shoulder, I get tricep, but I get a combination of a bunch of things going on all at the same time. So it just depends. Again, the jury's really out on this when it comes down to which is the best exercise for me. I find integrating all of them at different stages of your training is important, because like I said, each one will hit a muscle at a different angle or hit it in a different way, right? So thanks a lot for tuning in to the Friday Q&A with Natural Gallant Bodybuilding. Make sure you check out my website, naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and take care for now. There you go, train the muscles, not the joints. Guaranteed to make your back bigger, guaranteed.